Thinking about launching a podcast but overwhelmed by all the moving parts? At Turnkey Podcast Productions, we take the hassle out of podcasting so you can focus on the talk, not the tech. From concept to launch, guest booking to post-production, we handle everything. Need a strategy to grow your show and turn guests into clients? Yep, we do that too. DIY or done for you, we've got the solution that fits. Whether you're just getting started or ready to scale, Turnkey is your behind-the-scenes podcast team. Turnkey Podcast Productions. Your voice, your message, fully produced. Learn more at turnkeypodcast.com/contact. That's turnkeypodcast.com/contact.
Here's what's next on the Nice Guys on Business.
Here's what I also realized too, as I started moving up the different stages that I talk about in the book, right? So when you get to the architect or when you get to the CEO, right, you're above the architect, which means you're steering the ship. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're coaching and mentoring your leadership team. You're being the face of the organization. You're figuring out where to deploy capital and protecting culture. That's all you're doing as a CEO. And you have someone else building systems for that decision layer and making things streamlined. But what happens now when you're the CEO, you're working 20 hours a week, right? But you'll go into a creative meeting and they'll be like, no, I'm good. You'll go into a product meeting. No, I'm good. Go into marketing meeting. No, I'm good. Financial meeting. No, I'm good. And you're like, crap, the business doesn't need me anymore.
The Nice Guys apologize for any inconvenience that this podcast has caused anyone. By the way, is there anyone listening who knows how to fly a plane? Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community, welcome back to the show. Meet Justin Swenk. Now, you may be familiar with his face if you've been watching or listening to the show for any number of years, because Jason was actually a guest that I didn't realize and figure out until today as I'm doing a little bit more research about Jason. He was a guest on my Ford Mustang The Early Years podcast. That is a 66 Mustang that he built into race car levels and sold it, doesn't have it anymore, but he is still a Mustang guy through and through. He's a Ford guy through and through. Anyway, so let me tell you a little bit about Jason. He's an entrepreneur who built and scaled a multi-million-dollar agency only to be told by his wife to shut it down. Not because he was failing, but because of who he'd become while he was running it. Now, how many of you can relate to that? The moment changed everything, and Jason went on to sell the business and now helps founders break through what he calls the rubber band effect, the pullback to old habits that keeps them stuck. In his book, new book called Operator to Owner, he explains why the skills that got you to $1 million in revenue can actually stop you from getting to $5 million, and why growth is about a mindset more so than a strategy. So let's talk about that. Today we're talking about what it really takes to step up and out of the operator role and become more of the owner that your business actually needs. Jason, I'm excited to see you on this side of the game. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. And did you know from the moment that you booked this interview? I did. So when did you figure it out?
Not until you mentioned it, because I was like, when you jumped on, I was like, man, this guy looks familiar. And then I was like, when you mentioned Mustang podcast, I was like, well, I've only been on one, ever. So,
okay. So somehow our paths crossed. Maybe I was on your email list and I don't know, somehow it happened. And then what's interesting is we get so many, as I know you have a podcast also that you've been doing for 13 years, and we've had this one for 11. I get so many, as I'm sure you do, requests, and I normally don't even read most of them anymore, or I just send them to my assistant and just say, hey, could you send them the sorry, but we don't have any room. But for some reason, it wasn't because of your name stuck out. I don't know what it was. Just the moon and stars aligned to have you come back on the show.
Well, you know what it is, because I get pitched all day long as well, and it's pretty annoying, right? Because they create a huge summary.
Right.
And they'll say something like this: I love your show that you did with X, Y, and Z, which they didn't listen to. Right. And you can tell AI did that. And then they just go in this long pitch. And so like, I bet if you look back at my email to you guys, it was very simple. It's like, hey, you might not have talked about something around, the operator to owner. Everyone talks about who do you need to hire versus the who do you need to become, maybe that might be interesting. And like,
I
keep
don't
it
know.
simple.
It probably was that I always tell everybody, do not send me, even in the signature line of my email, I say, Doug likes building relationships. He likes selling. He likes short emails. You know, it's like, so maybe it was a short email that kind of caught my attention. So
I'll tell you another little hack.
yeah, go ahead.
If you want one.
I love hacks. Go ahead.
Okay. Create a template in your Gmail or your email for when someone sends you a pitch. And then say this, you must have a professional mic. You must not have one of those stupid virtual backgrounds. And anybody that wants to come on the show, go review my show and send me a screenshot of it.
Wait, you've been reading my rules, my nice guy rules. Got to rate and review, got to subscribe, got to share with me what your plans are, got to have a USB microphone, and you can't use a blurred background. It's pretty simple. Do you have those same rules too?
Yes.
I wonder if I stole them from you or if you stole them from me somewhere.
Maybe.
Or we stole them from you. Maybe so. We might have taken them from somebody else.
Yes.
Those have been the greatest eliminators of people sitting in the guest seat. Oh, what do you mean? I need to have a USB microphone. That's going to be expensive. I'm like, no, you can spend. I don't even respond to that. When they say, I'm not going to send you a screenshot, you'll have to try. I'm like, no, you don't get my scheduling link until you rate and review the show. It's pretty much that simple.
Exactly. So shameless plug for you guys, go rate his show right now.
Yeah, for those in our community that haven't heard me beat the drum of please rate and review the show, it's the lifeblood to any podcast to get caught up in the algorithm so that we can actually be seen organically by more people going to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please, wherever you're listening, please take a moment and do that. This is what happens when you have a burrito right before you join the.
Well, I always hate when you get like that little tickle in your throat. Yeah, it's horrible.
So anyway, let's talk about your book a little bit because I'm really curious about it. How did you title it? Sounds pretty easy that you came up with a title. And what are some of the easy cliche errors that many founders or starters are making when it comes to building their business from the ground up?
Well, think about when you start a business, you're doing everything yourself, right? Like you found this thing and you're the operator. So you'll focus on sales. And then what happens? Operations goes down. You focus on operations. What happens? Sales goes down. And it's this yo-yo effect or this roller coaster ride. And then what happens is you have to kind of mentally shift and assume a new identity rather than an operator of getting used to doing everything. So what happens a lot of times, right, is you go, well, I want to scale this, so I need to hire people. But you hire people at the wrong time. And so you become a manager of people. So you're still working, let's say in the operator, you were working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
So now in the manager role, congrats, you're working 90 hours a week because you're doing all the stuff you used to do, but then you're managing all the stuff for the new people as well as doing their work, and you're paying them, which doesn't seem very exciting, does it?
Nope, not at all. Bringing somebody in, paying them, and you're still doing more work than you were doing before.
Yeah. And so what I realized when I was going through this first shift that I needed to go through was because entrepreneurs, we're probably the worst managers in the world.
Well, we're micromanagers. We want to do everything ourselves because nobody can do it any better than us.
Exactly.
Right.
And so what I realized was I had to hire people that could manage themselves, but I also had to have systems in place. So not every decision was going through me. And so what I started thinking about was the different stages I was going through. So the third level stage, so you got operator, manager, the next level up is architect. So you start developing systems for approvals that don't require everything for you, because the founders are the bottlenecks for everything.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt. Yeah, I can remember having a number of conversations with my partner, and this was when we were paying an operations manager. Now, I know $40,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when your company is making $75,000 and you're paying 40 of it to an operations manager, and you haven't pulled any money out of the business yourself, you feel like, why am I doing this? However, the lesson that we learned in that process was, let's stay in our zone of genius, only doing the things that we do best, and keep me out of spreadsheets and keep him out of relationship building and selling, put me in more of a support role, put him in more of a systems and operations role, and let the operations manager handle our team. it took a little while for us to not only do that, but really focus in on not doubling back and going back through what our operations manager and our team was doing and double check. Look, they're going to make mistakes. That's the best lesson learned. That's the best life lesson you could learn, is let them make the mistakes. Do you talk about that in the book as you grow a business?
Yeah. So one of the things I had to learn, we need to take the floaties off your team. Right.
Yeah.
And we need to throw them in the deep end and let them swim. And I had our event a little while ago, and I was telling people about a situation that I have in the book where it's kind of, think about, we try to stop every kind of fender bender that we see coming because we've gone through it.
Right.
But I tell everybody, you have to let the fender benders happen, but prevent the train wreck.
Okay.
Meaning you have to let them fail, and they're not going to be at your level for a while, and you have to be happy with that 80% of what you would actually output. But then over time, what will happen is they'll become better than you. And you have to figure out, and that's why, like, for example, let's say you're hiring a salesperson. Mm-hmm. Okay. And most people that hire salespeople, they've never been a salesperson.
Right.
And they're horrible at it. So they just hire a salesperson, say, go have at it. Learn my business, go do it. But there's no system in place to help them. So what I realized with that, and I've helped a lot of different people, and I talk about that in the book as well, for the sales process, what you have to do is think about what's the first thing you want them to sell. But even before that, how can you get them up to speed the fastest? And why are you normally the best salesperson in the company? Because you understand all the stories, the success stories.
Right.
So if you come up with a system where you can train them on your stories, they can use those in those sales calls. So let's say, Doug, you said, I'm struggling with lead generation. Well, then my salesperson could go to a story. Oh, I remember Stacy, who had trouble with lead generation, and this is what they did, and this is how we helped. And eventually they build their own stories. But you have to build that system layer in order to help them, and then they'll be way better. And then what happens is, voila, you actually don't have to work as much, because when you get to the architect level, you're only working about 40 hours a week.
Mm. So when did you go from the guy that was running the company to the guy, or working in the business, to the guy that was working on the business? And then you took the next step, which was, I've done this well enough to be able to train other people how to do what we have done within our organization to their organizations.
So I was coming home every night, just miserable, stressed out. And we were probably, at the time, we were about 2 million in revenue and successful in everybody else's eyes. Mm-hmm. But in my head, I was still doing so much, and I was doing a lot where I was just burning out. And my wife was like, go get a job, close it down. I was like, close down a $2 million profitable agency?
Right.
Like, that's crazy. But, obviously I listened. And so I took an interview, and they asked me 2 questions. They go, what do you want to do every day? And what don't you never want to ever do again? And, I couldn't answer that in the meeting or the interview. I was like, I don't know. And look, man, I've been fired from every single job I've ever had as a kid. So I would have been the worst employee anyway.
Right.
And so I went back, and I took some time, and this is an exercise I have in the book that all of you guys can go do, right? If you get a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, put your fist on the sheet of paper and draw a circle around it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then for about 20 or 30 minutes, concentrate on all the stuff that you can't stand doing, that you're doing right now in your business. So mine was like account management, sales, talking to clients, project management, accounting, bookkeeping, all the different things.
Right.
So I started with all the stuff I wanted to eliminate first. And then I go, what gives me energy? Mm-hmm. What do I like doing, right? Like, I like coaching my team. I like adding color on the sales calls. I like coming up with a direction for where we're actually going and doing kind of some of those side projects.
I'm you. I'm listening to all these things, and I'm totally you.
That's
I'm
every
checking off those
founder,
boxes.
if you think about it.
Oh, is it?
Right. And so then what I realized was, I can actually build the business around me, rather than when I started by accident, right? Like, I designed a website making fun of one of my friends that looked like Justin Timberlake.
Mm-hmm, okay.
That was when NSYNC was really popular. And so I created a fake band, fake website called In Shit, and it got popular, and people started asking me to design websites.
All right.
Okay. And so I was off to the races, but I was reactive to the market. I never had a vision for where I wanted to take it. Basically, I created a job that I wanted to get away from my 9 to 5 job, which I successfully did because now I had a job that I was 24/7.
Oh yeah, I was going to say you work in, every entrepreneur's dream is to work a self-employed job, working 100 hours a week, which they were doing for 20 to 40 hours a week working for somebody else, and no responsibility beyond that.
But from that moment, by just doing that exercise, I realized that I could create systems to delegate that stuff, hire to other people, use automation or now AI for some stuff. I could just say no. Right. And I could build that business around me, around what I wanted. I could say, I could audit my calendar. And this is what I did too. I said, because I just felt drained at the end of every day.
Yeah.
And then I took a lot of time off, and then sometimes I felt bored at the end of the day. So I had to find my fighting weight for how much time I was going to work in the business. And for me, it was, I only do meetings and work Tuesdays through Thursdays, 9 to 2.
11 to 3 for me, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. No Mondays and Fridays either.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm you.
Yeah. And so when I was able to do that, now I was energized. Now, is everything perfect? No. Like, there's always going to be ups and downs. And here's what I also realized too, as I started moving up the different stages that I talk about in the book, right? So when you get to the architect, or when you get to the CEO, right? You're above the architect, which means you're steering the ship. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're coaching and mentoring your leadership team. You're being the face of the organization. You're figuring out where to deploy capital and protecting culture. That's all you're doing as a CEO. And you have someone else building systems for that decision layer and making things streamlined. But what happens now when you're the CEO, you're working 20 hours a week, right. But you'll go into a creative meeting and they'll be like, no, I'm good. You'll go into a product meeting. No, I'm good. Go into marketing meeting. No, I'm good. Financial meeting. No, I'm good. And you're like, crap, the business doesn't need me anymore.
They don't need you. You've effectively built yourself out of a job, which is really where you effectively want to be, right?
Sometimes. So what I talk about these 5 roles, is you have to figure out, where do you want to go? Everyone goes, I want to get to the owner where the business doesn't need me. I can take off. But for some people, they want to have that sense of purpose and that significance and that contribution and want to roll up the sleeves and that kind of stuff. I always tell everybody, even if it's reaching for the architect, get to the architect, and some people are happy. But do not stay in the operator or the manager role, because that's just, you can't leave. You can't take any time off. There's no freedom of why we created it. At least at the architecture level, you can take some time off.
What was the idea behind putting the book together to begin with? Because it seems like as an agency owner, you were doing well. As someone that's training other agency owners or other business owners, founders to do what you have done, you do well also. Was it to reach a larger audience, but just not have quite as heavy a hand on the growth of their organization, or just to spread the wealth in mass?
Just spread the wealth.
Yeah.
So when I started Agency Mastery, the whole goal was to create a resource I wish I had when I was running the agency. So when I started, doing this book, right? Like, I literally was like, well, this actually works so much better for any type of business owner. Actually, if you think about it, the whole principle is it works for even employees.
Right.
Because they may start off at operators. Right. And even like, I wish I didn't have just founder. It could be like anybody, on it. But, I just wanted to let people know that this is what I went through. And like you, most founders, we go through the exact same thing. And like what you're talking about in the intro about kind of the rubber band effect. So this is what happened to me. I got to the CEO level, and that was the highest level I got to in the first agency when I sold. And what I kept happening was, when I was working those 20 hours, I just kept trying to mess up stuff to feel important.
Oh my gosh. And I do the same thing. I'll go into a system that was created and I'll be like, let me see if I can break the system. Like, why are you fucking doing that? Just let there is somebody on your team that I promise you is going to run into the system and break it somewhere along the way, and they will figure it out. Why are you trying to manage that? Stop micromanaging. Just spend your time under the truck, enjoy that, or spend the time with big picture thinking or meeting with other people that are at your level, and helping and help build your own business to the next level where you can take it.
Yeah. And we just psychologically, we haven't evolved to that role yet. And we think the business doesn't need us anymore for the old stuff, but it needs us for the new stuff. And so psychologically, you go through depression. But like when I tell everybody that, and probably everybody listening that's working, around the clock, they're like, that would be amazing, Jason and Doug. Like, I want to do that. But when you literally get to that, you can self-sabotage yourself.
Yeah.
And you can go back a role because your company will only grow as big as you grow. Mm-hmm. And so when I sold that first agency and I was at that CEO role, I wasn't at the owner role because I was still steering the ship. I was still coaching the leadership team, but I felt like I was holding everybody back. And at that time I was, because I didn't evolve. And I didn't realize until I started working with all these other businesses, I was like, oh man, I know way more. I could have grown that way bigger. And then it started really, it was like that aha moment, right? Like you're like, haha, like,
well, I see the next iteration of this operator to owner to exit, because I think that there's a lot of people that are also at the ownership level spending a little, or maybe there's something beyond, beyond the legacy or something like that, because I do know that there is a few different types of people, those that are in scale up mode, try to get from 200,000 to 1 million. And then there's the people that are trying to get from 1 million to more, to 5 million. And then there's the person that's like, I've planned this. How do we exit out of this? How do we build ourselves out of a role in this company altogether?
Well, the saddest thing I hear throughout the days, like when people come to me and maybe they're in their 50s or 60s, and they'll say, I need to sell my business in the next 3 years. I'm like, why? Well, I've always had a goal to retire at this. I was like, well, can't you retire without all the money you
right.
built up? They're like, no, this is it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? But the whole business depends on them, and they're putting all their eggs in one basket. And so, you can sell your business when you get to any level, but you're only going to get that big multiple and that big paycheck if you're at the CEO or owner role. And the owner, like if you think about, like one of the examples that I talk about in the book is like Tony Robbins. He has 1,000 companies.
Wow. He
cannot be an architect, a manager,
right?
Even a CEO of 1,000 companies. You can't do that for 5 companies and do it great. Right. You can only be an owner, which is like an owner is almost like a board of advisors or an advisor to that business that you just need to be accessible to that leadership team for when they need advice.
Give me a takeaway for somebody that's in our listening audience that is grasping the overall picture, operator to owner, and understand that, but they just don't know what step one would be. Where do you want people to be? And I know it just depends on where they're entering the equation, but what would be some advice for somebody that's listening to this, that's thinking, okay, well, Jason, where do I at least get started with this?
Figure out where you're at. And I built an application to help you with this, and actually gives you a recommendation to go, hey, this is the level that you're at. Because a lot of times the level you think you're at is not the level you're at.
Okay.
So then you're actually executing and using strategies that are for a different level that you're not even at. And then you're just going to spin your wheels. So the first thing is figure out where you're at. And if you're at an operator, cool. There's no knock on that. Like, this is just the starting point.
Got it.
And you just need to know, what level are you at? And then what do we need to do? So for example, if you're an operator, hire someone that believes in something that has the same core beliefs that you have, not your twin, but have similar beliefs, and that can do the stuff you hate doing and you're not good at.
Yeah, okay. There are plenty of things that are in the day-to-day of running and owning a business that I'm sure many in our community are doing, but they're just dreading it. And whether it costs you extra money and you think it's just money that's going out the door, hire somebody to take that role, because I promise you, when you are enjoying what you're doing, it makes your day-to-day a lot more tolerable. And then when you're only doing the things you love, it makes it really enjoyable. You have an actual fun time building your business.
And it's more fun to do it with a team rather than by yourself. I know there's all those stupid influencers out there going, you can do everything in AI, but you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I've surrounded myself with people that do their jobs much better than I was doing their job, and they enjoy doing it. As a matter of fact, when we get somebody that's on the team that isn't having a great time in their role that we hired them for, but they're still a good person, we don't want to get rid of them. We just want to find out what seat on the bus are they looking for, because it's harder to find a good person than it is to find a skill. I mean, somebody that can operate and do something well, they're a dime a dozen. It's the person that has the soft skills that you have a challenge with. So if you find the right people, find a spot for them on the bus to be able to work within your organization.
Yeah. I mean, so the first step is really figuring out, where are you? Where do you want to go? And then who do you need to become? That's really the principle of the whole book, rather than like, who do you need to hire?
Well said.
I mean, the only time you really need to figure out who to hire is really in the kind of the very beginning, because then after you have the right infrastructure and the right team, other people are figuring out who to hire.
Yeah. Yeah. Where, if someone wants to get a hold of your book, can they do that? Because that would be a good first step for somebody to get in touch with how you do what you do before they reach out directly.
So if you go to operator-to-owner-evolution.com, so operator-to-owner-evolution.com, you can get the book link, as well as there's that founder diagnosis to figure out what stage you're at and what do you actually need to do to get to the next stage.
Excellent. And we'll put a link in the show notes for that as well. Hardcover, audio, and digital. You have all of your choices. And put a plug in for your podcast. Are you still doing your podcast twice a week?
Yeah.
I know you were doing that before.
Never missed a week in 13 years. Do 2 shows a week. It's called the Smart Agency Masterclass. So if you're a service-based business, preferably digital agency or marketing agency, that's the podcast to check out.
All right. So check out the podcast, check out the book. And Jason, thanks for sharing your expertise on the Nice Guys today. Good to see you again. Surprise to both of us. I sat in front of somebody for probably 3 or 4 meetings. I spent my last career, 30 years, as a bar mitzvah DJ. So I don't know if I've given you that background ever before, but I sat probably in a handful of meetings with them, maybe a few less. And we discovered I did their son and their daughter's bar mitzvah. So I don't feel quite as bad that, hey, it's been 5 years since we've seen each other, but it was good to be able to connect with you again.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Jason Swenk, all of his information, including access to his book and his podcast right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.